Let me tell you something that might offend your comfort. Most people are asleep when their future is trying to speak. You keep asking for clarity, you keep asking for breakthrough, you keep asking for success. But when it shows up at 4:00 in the morning, you roll over and hit the snooze button on your destiny. You don't need more time. You need more order in your time. You don't need better luck. You need better decisions while the world is quiet. Waking up at 4 a.m. is not about being extreme. It's about taking authority. You wake up at 4 a.m. and you're no longer reacting to life. You are dictating the terms of how your day unfolds. At 4 a.m., there is no noise. There are no notifications, no distractions, just you and your thoughts, you and your God, you and the vision, and that silence, that stillness. It is not empty. It is pregnant with answers you've been too distracted to hear. Most people don't realize how chaotic their lives have become until they taste real control for the first time. Waking up at 4 a.m. gave me that control, not in theory, not as a motivational concept, but as a real, tangible shift. Because when you wake up that early, you're no longer in competition with the distractions of the world. You're not checking your phone. You're not reacting to texts, emails, or headlines. You are awake while the rest of the world is still trying to catch its breath. And in that quiet, something rare happens. You take back ownership of your time. See, most people live their days on defense. They wake up late, they rush, they spill coffee, they forget commitments, they apologize, they play catch-up from the moment their feet hit the ground. It becomes a pattern. Wake up exhausted, move through the day in a fog, fall asleep frustrated, repeat, and they wonder why nothing changes. They wonder why they feel behind, why they feel out of alignment, why success seems like something other people get to have. But here's the truth. You cannot change your life if you cannot command your day. When I began waking up at 4 a.m., it wasn't to be impressive. It was to become intentional. That early hour isn't magic on its own. What's magic is the clarity it creates. At 4 a.m., you get to think clearly, you get to reflect, you get to move your body, write your goals, read something meaningful, plan your next steps, not because you have to, but because you chose to. There's a deep internal confidence that gets built every time you do something difficult when no one is watching. That's where real self-respect is formed. That's where focus is sharpened. You begin the day on offense. You've already done the hard thing. You've already conquered the temptation to sleep in. You've already proven to yourself that you run the schedule. Not your laziness, not your comfort, not your doubt. That's power, because when the sun rises and the world begins to spin with noise and demands, you've already established your position. You're ahead, not just in time, but in clarity, in energy, in mindset. It's not about perfection. You're going to miss a day, you're going to feel tired, but it's not about being perfect. It's about being in position. Waking up at 4 a.m. puts you in position to win, not just in business, not just in fitness, but in character. Because the person who consistently gets up when it's hard is not the same as the person who always chooses comfort. One is leading their life, the other is following it. That one decision, waking up early, becomes the first domino in a chain reaction of excellence. Not because it changes the world, but because it changes how you show up in the world. And that shift changes everything. Most people are waiting for motivation to strike before they move. They say things like, "I'm just not a morning person," or "I need to feel inspired to start." But let's be real. Your feelings are the most inconsistent, unreliable drivers of action you could ever rely on. If you want to live a life of purpose, discipline must take the wheel. That's why waking up at 4 a.m. is not about becoming someone else. It's about revealing who you were always meant to be. It forces you to build a relationship with commitment, not convenience. You don't need to like waking up early. You need to learn how to obey what matters more than how you feel. That's where the shift begins. The alarm goes off and your body says no, but your purpose says yes. And when you honor that yes over and over again, you start building a new pattern. A pattern of power. A pattern of obedience to your higher self, not your weaker self. That's what intention looks like. It's choosing what needs to be done regardless of what your mood wants. When you wake up early, it's not the hour that transforms you. It's the asterisk choice asterisk. It's the moment you decide to act in alignment with your vision, not your emotions. You don't hit snooze because you're tired. You hit snooze because you haven't fully committed to who you say you want to become. Intention closes that gap. It says, I'm no longer available for the version of me that keeps postponing growth. This practice trains your mind to understand that success isn't based on how you feel, it's based on what you decide. And every day that you wake up early, not to impress anyone, not to post it, but to put yourself in motion before the world pulls on you, you're telling your nervous system, we don't serve comfort anymore, we serve calling. And here's the powerful part. The discipline you use in that first choice bleeds into everything else. You eat differently because you're now acting like someone who leads their life, not follows it. You communicate better. You train harder. You plan your day with authority, and your confidence doesn't come from a book or a speech. It comes from watching yourself do the hard thing again and again. Let's stop pretending this is about mornings. It's about identity. Do you want to keep negotiating with procrastination, or do you want to become the kind of person who lives on principle? Because once you decide to act in alignment with your goals, and you do it consistently, your life will stop feeling chaotic. It will start feeling designed, and it all begins with that one choice: intention over emotion, action over excuse. That's where transformation lives. At 4 a.m., there is no applause. There are no deadlines. No pressure to perform, no notifications buzzing for your attention. Just stillness, just quiet, and for the first time in a long time, your mind isn't crowded, it's clear. Most people never get to hear their real thoughts because they've never created the conditions to listen. Noise has become normal, distraction is now the default, but when you wake up before the world, you step into a space where clarity finally has room to speak. See, clarity isn't a matter of luck, it's the reward for order. Most people live scattered lives because their inputs are scattered. They start the day looking at someone else's life, someone else's timeline, someone else's chaos, and they wonder why they feel stuck. You can't build a focused life when your mind is constantly flooded, but at 4 a.m., everything is still, and in that stillness, you're not reacting to the world. You're reconnecting with your vision. This is when the real planning happens. Not the kind you scribble down between meetings or during a traffic light. I'm talking about sober strategy, intentional thinking, honest reflection. When you sit with your goals while it's quiet, you start to see what matters and what doesn't. You stop making decisions from anxiety and start making them from alignment. This isn't about being hyper-productive. It's about being present with your goals, present with your calling, present with the questions you've been too busy to ask. Questions like, what am I building? Who am I becoming? What am I avoiding? What have I been lying to myself about? And without all the noise, those answers don't just whisper. They start shouting. Clarity in the morning becomes fuel for the rest of the day. When you start the day in alignment, decisions become easier. You're not scrambling. You're not guessing. You're executing a vision you already defined. That's why the most dangerous person isn't the loudest. It's the one who's clear, the one who planned their moves in silence while everyone else was still sleeping. And the best part, this isn't reserved for the ultra-disciplined or the elite. Anyone can claim this clarity. It doesn't cost a dime. It just requires you to care enough about your life to stop giving your best hours to chaos. Waking up early isn't about being hardcore, it's about being available to truth, available to purpose, available to make moves from wisdom, not stress. When you stop living inside distraction and start sitting inside clarity, your entire life begins to sharpen. Your confidence builds not from hype, but from knowing you're moving in the right direction. And that knowing, that's what changes everything, because a clear mind is an unstoppable weapon, and it's forged in the silence before the sun. Procrastination doesn't begin with laziness, it begins with hesitation. And hesitation is the child of confusion. You don't put things off because you're incapable. You put things off because you haven't fully decided who you are yet. But waking up at 4 a.m. leaves no room for confusion. When you rise that early, you make a declaration before the world even starts moving. I'm here to create, not coast. And the more you do it, the more that identity solidifies. Procrastination begins to die, not because you beat it once, but because you show up in a way it can no longer survive. At 4 a.m., there is no delay, there's no one to talk you out of it, no distractions to justify your stalling. You're left with nothing but the task and the decision. Do or don't, act or hesitate. That kind of pressure refines your execution. It teaches you to act immediately, not when you feel like it, not when the mood is right, but when the vision demands it. And once you begin operating like that, procrastination stops being a habit. It becomes offensive to your new identity. That early hour is a proving ground. Every time you choose to act before comfort sets in, you're reinforcing a mindset that says, we don't wait, we move. And that principle carries through the rest of the day. You stop overthinking. You stop rewriting to-do lists that never get done. You stop entertaining distractions disguised as priorities. You move with precision because you started the day in discipline. The truth is, procrastination is a symptom. The real problem is self-trust. You don't trust yourself to follow through, so you delay starting. But when you consistently wake up early and follow a plan, something powerful happens. Your confidence starts coming from evidence. You stop needing external motivation because you've built internal momentum. You don't just say you're disciplined. You prove it before the sun even rises. And here's what most people miss. Procrastination isn't just costing you time. It's robbing you of identity. Every time you delay what you know you should do, a little piece of your integrity erodes. But when you reverse that, when you attack your tasks before the excuses can form, you begin to rebuild that integrity. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes, someone who leads, someone who follows through. That transformation doesn't require years. It requires decision, one early morning at a time. Because once you train yourself to move before comfort, everything else speeds up. Your progress, your clarity, your success. It all accelerates when hesitation is replaced by habit. So no, waking up at 4 a.m. doesn't magically erase procrastination. But it puts you in a place of power where excuses lose their voice and discipline becomes your default. And when that happens, you stop being your biggest obstacle and start becoming your greatest asset. Mediocrity is not something that shows up and announces itself. It's quiet. It sneaks in as good enough, as I'll do it later, as this is fine for now. And before you know it, you're living a life that's far below the level of what you're capable of. Waking up at 4 a.m. is not just about getting ahead of your to-do list. It's about making a loud and unapologetic statement. I am done being average. You don't beat mediocrity with talk. You beat it with action. Consistent, early, inconvenient action. When you rise at 4 a.m., you're doing what the average person won't even consider, and that's the point. It's not about being better than someone else. It's about being better than who you were yesterday. Average is comfortable, average is popular, but greatness is rare because it demands more. And 4 a.m. is where you start paying that price, not because it's easy, but because you finally understand that easy has never built anything worth keeping. Every early wake-up call is a shot fired against the version of yourself that's settled. Every decision to move while the world sleeps is a direct rejection of passivity. You're not waiting for your moment, you're creating it. That's the mindset that separates those who live with regret from those who live with results. Waking up early strips away the illusion. You begin to see that most of the limitations you thought were real were just habits you never challenged. And once you start showing up in ways that require discipline and discomfort, you begin to discover how much potential has been sitting dormant inside of you, not because it wasn't there, but because mediocrity was louder than purpose. And here's the part no one tells you: the people around you might not understand it. They might mock it. They might call it extreme. That's fine. They don't have to get it, because mediocrity always attacks what threatens it. You're not doing it for approval, you're doing it for alignment, and when you live in alignment with excellence, you stop caring about fitting in with the average. The moment you decide to stop negotiating with low standards, your environment starts to change. Your mindset sharpens, your standards rise, and yes, you will lose some things, comfort, distractions, maybe even some people, but you will gain something far greater: momentum, discipline, self-respect, power. That's what happens when you wage war on mediocrity every single morning. So make no mistake, waking up at 4 a.m. is not a lifestyle trend. It's a rebellion against everything that told you to play small. It's not a flex, it's a fight, and the person who keeps showing up in that fight, regardless of how tired, how uncomfortable, how inconvenient that asterisk person is the one who rises, not just early, but permanently. When you wake up at 4 a.m., you're not just waking up early. You're stepping into a version of yourself that most people never meet. It's not about chasing hustle or stacking achievements. It's about alignment. Alignment with the life you've said you want but haven't been living. That hour strips away the noise, and in that silence, you're forced to ask, am I who I claim to be? That's where real self-respect is born. Not from quotes on your wall or applause from the crowd, but from private victories, from doing what you said you'd do when no one is watching. Every time you rise when it would have been easier to stay in bed, you keep a promise to yourself. And when you start keeping those promises consistently, something incredible happens. Your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying to be disciplined, and you start recognizing that you are disciplined. It becomes part of your DNA. You become someone who follows through, someone who does the work whether it's comfortable or not, and that new identity starts to shape everything: how you walk, how you speak, how you treat people, how you face adversity. This is more than morning motivation. It's internal reconstruction, because waking up at 4 a.m. forces you to confront the areas of your life that you've been avoiding. It puts you face to face with your excuses. And that kind of self-confrontation is uncomfortable, but it's also the birthplace of integrity. You stop pretending, you stop performing, you start living in truth. And here's the key: when your actions align with your values, when your behavior aligns with your beliefs, you don't need validation from the outside. You walk different, not because you're arrogant, but because you're in alignment. You start making decisions faster, you stop doubting your path, you start creating results that match your potential. Most people are stuck not because they lack skill, but because they lack alignment. Their words say one thing, but their habits say another. But when you start waking up early and you consistently put first things first, your internal world and external life begin to sync up. That's when peace shows up. Not the kind that comes from rest, but the kind that comes from resolve, because self-respect isn't built in comfort. It's built in conflict, in the early hours when no one else sees it but you. It's built when you keep showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And that kind of self-respect, it's the foundation of every great thing you'll build. Wake up early not because it's popular, but because it reconnects you to who you really are, the person who doesn't wait to be chosen. The person who gets up and chooses themselves every single day.